Weyes Blood dropped one of the best albums of 2019 in my opinion with Titanic Rising, an absolutely spellbinding wonder of an album with amazing artwork, by the way. That still to me is one of the best album artworks I have seen of the past few years. I absolutely adore that thing. The effort that went into it as well, like even if it wasn't quite as nice to look at, I'd still be in awe of the effort they went into. But the fact that it is a stunning album cover as well, and then you factor in what they did to create that, insane, absolutely insane. Yeah, a wondrous album. Love it. Still think it's a great album to this day, one of the best of that year. So of course I was hyped for the next thing that she'd be putting out, because, you know, why wouldn't I be? She released the opening single a few months back, should I say. It's Not Just Me, It's Everybody. I think this is a good track. I still think you could probably trim the runtime a little bit. Just that opening section feels like it is testing your patience a little bit too much. It really takes quite a while to build. But once you get to the finale ending, it's not quite as gargantuan as it could have been to sort of, you know, really, I guess, crescendo into something absolutely magical. It could have gone a bit further with it, but I still think it's a good track. Like, even with all that being said, you can't really fault Weyes Blood in the way that she presents her vocals, the whimsical approach to her singing, the beauty behind her voice as well. There's such a stunning angelicness to it that I just kind of fall for every time. Like, she is one of those singers that just kind of hooks me in with the voice. I think for me though, the moments on this album that really stand out, even though there are some beautiful vocal moments, of course, as there are going to be with Weyes Blood, it's to be expected. For me, it's tracks like Children of the Empire, where there's a bit more of a pep to the song, there's a bit more of a shuffling beat, there's kind of that everyday vibe that you got from Titanic Rising, Andromeda as well, where these tracks kind of had more movement going on. They kind of had a fluid energy coming through in the track that just makes the song run a bit more like a poppier Baroque pop affair. I think it fits her perfectly when she steps up the tempo. I really do. I find tracks like this, and The Worst Is Done as well, to be some of her best that she's ever done. I think they're really, really good tracks. I just love her in this vibe. I love her when she's full-on Carpenter's mode, you know? She's really pulling from that late 60s, early 70s Baroque pop era, a bit of Beach Boys in there as well, maybe not quite as you know, as hyperactive as a Brian Wilson in terms of the voice, but still it's got that kind of poppy, peppy energy to it that really just reminds me of that time period, and she kills it. She does it as well as the greats when she's doing it good. And with how wonderfully mixed and engineered her albums are, like I was saying with my Titanic Rising review, because there's just that modern sheen to it, she can go toe to toe with some of those classics when she is in this zone, and I think she really, really is up there with some of the best when she's doing it as well. And I think as well, the same guy that was all over the Perfume Genius album, No Shape, was all over Titanic Rising too. So of course that comparison works perfectly for me, because No Shape is absolutely stellar as an album. So anything that reminds me of that is going to be good. Grapevine is another highlight for me. I think the strings are absolutely spellbinding, as you'd expect from her. I think she really sucks you in with tracks like this. Like, I get really, really caught up in the mystical nature of it all. It's really, really lovely. So with all the positives to be said, because there are plenty, I will say that I'm sort of not as enamored with quite a bit of this album. I feel like it's not quite gripping me in the way that she has done in the past. I feel like God Turn Me Into a Flower is a good example of this, where I can't fault it vocally at all. And I really like the naturous vibe to the track. You've got these kind of like birds whistles coming through, the kind of like flowing water and stuff. I like that she's embracing more natural sounds for this track, but at the same time, I'm just not really like blown away by what's going on. I feel like it's so big and it's so larger than life that it's trying to capture me, and it just falls short of capturing me, and I'm not quite sure what it is that that's missing. It's missing that essence that I think Titanic Rising had. Holy Flux as well. Some of these shorter tracks just feel quite vapid to me. Like, they sound nice, but there's really nothing tugging me at all with tracks like this. And Twin Flame, I'm not as keen on this track in terms of the beat. There was a track from Titanic Rising that had a similar beat and ended up being the worst track, where she kind of tries to modernize and make things sound a little bit more like electronic leaning, but not quite electronic leaning. I just think she's trying to use more modern sounds in her music, and it actually ends up just sucking away some of the essence that makes her great. But then at the same time, I'm sort of critiquing the Baroque pop tracks that aren't really touching me like they should be, but obviously they are pretty much indicative of what she always does. So yes, I'm okay with her trying something a bit different with Twin Flame, but it just doesn't quite work. Final track as well I want to mention, again, the impressive vocals that come through just aren't hitting me. I don't know what it is. There's just not that emotional power attached to it that I'm expecting. I'm not like swept away by it. I don't know what it is. She really found a way to do it on Titanic Rising, but something's just not quite there. It's a miss a little bit somewhere. I can't quite figure it out. It all sounds really good, but it just doesn't quite move me. Do you know what I mean? I'm just not quite moved by it. I feel like there might just be a bit of a one-dimensional feel to some of these tracks. There's not quite enough going on. Perhaps it's the lyrics that aren't gripping me. Perhaps it's the vocals that, again, really sound great, but often she's in this upper register of falsetto, and I'm just not quite getting it. I'm just not quite feeling it, you know? There is that element of familiarity as well, don't forget. Like, these tracks are very much in line with what she's done already before. So to hear her do it again, to hear her try and shoot for something as large as Titanic Rising, even conceptually, I thought that was an impressive feat for an artist, that album. But to shoot for it again, to go again, you know what I mean? To go again a few years later, perhaps I'm just not quite sold on it. I'm just expecting the same thing, but and I'm getting a similar thing, but it's just not quite hitting that spot. So yeah, it's all good. It's a good album, it is, but I can't see this on the same level as Titanic Rising. I don't think it's quite as close, to be honest. I think a lot of the elements are there. I think, honestly, she probably could have trimmed the runtime for some of these tracks. Like I say, some of them are touching 5-6 minutes. Personally, don't think they necessarily need to reach that level, because I don't think the runtime quite warrants what she's going for. Again, previously she's gone for longer tracks and it's worked. I just don't think it's quite working this time around. And yeah, I don't know exactly what it is. Perhaps it's one to go back to later on, but it's just not touching me that I in a way that I thought it was going to. That emotional pull isn't quite there for this one. Hopefully you understand what I mean. I'm going to go 6 out of 10. I think this is good, but it's not enamoring me the way that I would expect. I think there's something missing a little bit. It's all very sheen, it's all very shiny, and it's doing everything right, but it almost isn't getting that emotional part right for me, where I think that's what music is. If you don't feel it, you gotta feel it, man. You gotta feel it. People realize music isn't always about, you know, the best components, the best qualities. If you don't feel it, that's all right. You move on and you listen to something different. But I like Weyes Blood. I think she's great. And I'm hoping to see her live next year as well. I'm really hoping I can get a ticket for that. That's got nothing to do with this review. But thank you for watching as always. Do subscribe if you haven't already. Please let me know what you think of my thoughts in the comments. If you agree, disagree. If it's an album of the year contender for you, I've seen it mentioned a lot for a lot of people. I don't quite have it on that level, but I think it's good. It's a good album. And thank you for watching as always. Yeah, subscribe. Have a good day. Goodbye.